super excited to be joined by Emily Wilson. And all of you know, Telium is proud to be a CDP partner to Meta. And there's a lot of exciting things built on CAPI, built on enhanced conversions, built on quality scores. But I don't want to steal any thunder from Emily. Emily is a product partnerships manager at Meta, and her focus is building partnerships that help advertisers get set up for success across the family of apps and services with products like Pixel, Conversions API, and Emily works closely with Facebook's product teams to identify opportunities for new partner ecosystem and, of course, partner product development. So we've had the pleasure of working with Emily for a while now. Emily, super glad you're here. I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, thanks so much, Justin, for having me, and thanks to the whole Telium team. Super thrilled to be participating in another of Telium's conferences. So thanks for having me. I'm going to share my screen and just talk a little bit about how we here at Meta think about performance in this new world and how data plays like an incredibly critical role in that world. So hopefully folks can see my screen. I'm going to talk through what we call performance on people's terms, which is a narrative that we are bringing to market to sort of to help articulate to the world and to our customers and to our partners how we think about performance and people's desire for control and privacy over their data can coexist. And really, we feel like that's really important. So as everyone on this call, I'm sure knows that there's a ton of changes that are happening in the industry. People's behaviors are shifting, technology is evolving, and constantly we're seeing new regulations being introduced that are really transforming the way that the advertising industry has historically worked. Everyone's very familiar, hopefully, feeling some of the benefits and some of the pain of that already today. And obviously, as a result of that, how data, fuels advertising is changing in a major way. So we see that on sort of three different dimensions. First, policies are things like GDPR, CCPA, and LGPD are giving people more options over how their data is used, give them more control over how that data gets shared with businesses, and that kind of thing. Oops, sorry, I went ahead too fast. Second, we see that people's behaviors are changing. So technologies like ad blockers are growing in sort of adoption and scale because people are choosing to opt out of receiving ads on websites. And then at the third dimension we see is on the platform side. So platforms are removing the concept of identity and grouping together data that gets shared with businesses. So it's no longer at the user level. And this is reflected in changes like Apple's SK ad network, which rolled out when they launched their ATT prompt earlier last year, as well as Google's Privacy Sandbox initiative. So the big thing to note here is that things are changing in many different ways as a result of these things, and businesses and platforms like Meta need to be prepared and prepping for those changes to ensure that advertising can continue to run uninterrupted. I would say at Meta, like our strong feeling and our sort of ethos is that personalized ads and data privacy can coexist. So we feel quite strongly that personalized ads are valuable to both people and businesses because it enables people to find products that they are interested in that they might not have discovered otherwise. And businesses can reach audiences of consumers who are likely to be interested in the things that they're selling. So that is a really important value prop and use case of personalized ads. While people may complain about ads they see on the internet, it's far worse to see an ad that's completely irrelevant to you than it is to see an ad for a product that you're actually interested or wanting to buy. The other half of this, our sort of ethos and perspective as Meta, is that personalization can coexist with data privacy. So while we're seeing these changes, as we talked about on the earlier slide around people's behaviors changing, regulations being introduced, and just general platform and industry changes, we are totally on board with people having more control and privacy over their data. But we do think that technological innovations, offering people more options and increasing transparency over how data gets used can help drive personalization and provide value to businesses and people while still respecting people's need and demands for more privacy and more control. So that's where we think about this idea of performance on people's terms. We want to continue to equip businesses that advertise on our platform with the tools that allow them to deliver strong return on investment for their ads, improved cost efficiency, the ability to reach customers who are interested in the products that they're selling or offering, and to be able to measure and understand the impact of the ads that they're running on our platform. And on the other side of that, that's the performance side. And the people's term side, like I said, we feel quite strongly that people really benefit from discovering products and services that they're actually going to be interested in, while at the same time having a really rich, complete understanding of how their data is being used on the platform and having more choice to personalize their ads experience, whether that means controlling sort of what targeting parameters they may be targeted with, or having control over what types of ads they see on our platform. And so as a result of this like very clear, like this ethos, we feel very passionately about this idea of performance on people's terms. And as a result, we're investing in evolving our advertising system to deliver on this promise that personalized advertising and privacy can coexist, that we can drive a ton of value for businesses and consumers alike, while still respecting people's desire to have more control over their data. So we're doing this in a few different ways. We're evolving how we receive data so that businesses can more reliably and securely share data about their customers and their business with Meta. We're also evolving how we deliver and optimize campaigns. So investing obviously in more powerful machine learning to achieve business goals. And as we think about evolving measurement and reporting, we want to help businesses better understand how the ads they run on Facebook are actually driving business outcomes that they care about. And on the sort of across all of those things, we want to create an ads experience that people really trust. And so from the business side, we think that's incredibly beneficial because it's an ads experience that's designed with transparency and fairness. So that's obviously beneficial to customers and customers on our platform, as well as advertisers who benefit from people feeling like they can trust the ads that they're seeing on our platform. That's at a high level. What I want to talk through in more detail today is evolving how we receive data, because we rely very heavily on partners like Telium to help us get our customers to a world in which they can more reliably share business data with Meta and really take advantage of having that high quality business and customer data on the platform. So the main product we want to highlight when we talk about reliably sharing data with Meta and evolving how we receive that data is Conversions API. So if you're not familiar with Conversions API, it's essentially a server-to-server connection that creates this reliable server-to-server connection between your marketing data and your stack and the Meta systems that deliver your ads. It's available now. It's been in market, and Telium is one of our strongest partners that can provide businesses with a way to easily connect and share their data through this API with Meta. We see there's a ton of benefits, which I'll dig into a little bit further with Conversions API, both in terms of short-term performance benefits, but also in terms of long-term benefits as we think about the regulatory and industry changes that are happening fairly rapidly within the advertising space. Like I mentioned, Conversions API is a server-to-server integration. So today, most of our advertisers that drive offsite to complete a business outcome outside of the walls of Meta, like a purchase on a website, rely on the pixel, which is a piece of code that you place on your website. It relies on current state browser tech to be effective, namely third-party cookies. As most people probably know, Firefox and Safari have already disabled third-party cookies by default, and we expect Chrome to do the same in the next several years, which will essentially render the pixel useless. And so we need to equip businesses with a way to continue to share data about what happens on their website with Meta, because that data is used not only to measure and attribute ads, but also to feed into our optimization and targeting mechanisms so that we continue to drive really strong performance for our advertisers. And just anecdotally, when we did a study of about 20,000 advertisers, who, if they had to switch from optimizing for that offsite, say a purchase event, that's the business outcome they really care about. If they didn't have the pixel and they could only optimize for the last event that happens within the walls of Facebook, such as a click offsite, we saw CPAs increase by about 150%. So there's a lot of urgency around making sure that businesses are prepared for this feature where the pixel is no longer effective, and making sure that they're in a position to continue to share data with Facebook that will power their advertising and not lead to those massive increases in CPA. So like I said, instead of relying on the pixel, you rely on this server-to-server connection where you can send data directly from your server through Conversions API into Meta. This is a really great solution for this challenge, but at the same time, we know this is harder to implement from a technical perspective than the pixel, which is just a copy and paste. But that's really where and why we have a robust partner network of partners like Telium that can abstract a lot of that complexity away and make it easy for a business to get set up on Conversions API in just a few clicks. So when we talk about benefits, obviously we think about the long term, where if the pixel goes away, we want to be in a place where businesses can continue to share data from their website to continue to drive really strong performance in ads. But there's also a lot of short-term benefits as well. So I'm going to dig into those a little bit further. So we think about more reliable data. More reliable data is obviously really important because the more accurate and reliable the data, the better our systems can understand who's doing what on your website and how do we capitalize on that behavior to drive better ad performance. So if you're just using the pixel today, you're getting good signal about what's happening on your website, but you're missing out potentially on conversions or any kind of website event data, whether it's conversions or just other higher funnel events. You're leaving that on the table because you could be losing some of that data to connectivity issues where the pixel doesn't load, or ad blockers that block the pixel entirely. And so when you use both the pixel and Conversions API together, you really maximize the reliability of the data you collect and match to users on Facebook. So you can decrease your cost per action and not lose out on any of that really crucial event data that you might be losing out on if you're only using the pixel. Second, we talk about more sophisticated data through Conversions API. So when you're using just the pixel today, the visibility you have is to events that take place on your website. But if you're a business that has a longer sales cycle, or the outcome that you care about doesn't actually happen on your website, let's say if you're driving people to fill out a lead form, but you really care about whether or not the lead converted on a subsequent phone call, you can't track that with the pixel, obviously, because the pixel is only tracking events that happen on a website. So with Conversions API, you can send us and optimize for deeper funnel events that reflect your real business goals. So things like subscriptions, those leads that come in over the phone, potentially more customized web events, or even, like we said, non-web events like a phone call. And again, the whole sort of value prop here is that you're able to show ads to people that are most likely to do the thing that matters most to your business. So it's great if they fill out a lead form on your website, but if you have a significant drop-off from lead form to closed, you really want to optimize for that closed lead because that's the thing that you really care about. And so with Conversions API, you can send that data into Meta and truly optimize for the thing that you really care about. We also want to highlight improved measurement capabilities through Conversions API. There's a number of different products that are things like Conversion Lift that sit within this sort of family of products that are enabled by Conversions API. And so you unlock these additional measurement capabilities that can more effectively demonstrate the impact that the ads you ran had on the things that you care about, those really specific business outcomes. And then finally, there's an opportunity to drive more better custom audiences and retargeting tactics, because if you're sending us higher quality, better data that really accurately reflects the business outcomes that you care about, obviously, then we can create better custom audiences that are aligned with that business outcome. And we can also improve our identity matching so that we're making sure that, when you send us a list of customers that you want to retarget, we're able to match as many of those as possible to Facebook users so that you can drive ads against and retarget those customers within Meta. And so obviously talking about all these benefits is great, but like, what are the actual things that we're seeing? So we are seeing like pretty meaningful success for advertisers who are on this journey with us. When advertisers follow best practices by combining both Conversions API and Pixel in kind of what we call a redundant setup, they see an 8% CPA improvement on average. And again, that's a reflection of being able to attribute more conversions to Meta, because you're not losing out on conversions to ad blockers or connectivity issues, as well as being able to optimize for business outcomes that they actually care about that may be further downstream or not able to be captured by the Pixel. So in addition to this really strong value prop of the Pixel's going away and we need to have an alternative way to share data, we also want to emphasize that there are meaningful performance benefits that you can get today when you onboard to Conversions API, and it's really easy to do that through a partner like Telium. I also want to highlight that in addition to Conversions API, we're making a lot of investments in what we call sort of the signals space overall, as we're thinking about this future where we expect there to be more greater increased regulatory changes, greater expectations from consumers around how their data is used. We want to be like ahead of the curve with regard to those changes and not be in a reactive position. So we are making some pretty significant like multi-year investments that I want to highlight. One being conversion modeling, and one being privacy enhancing, the other, being privacy enhancing technologies, or PETs. Conversion modeling is really designed to help improve both delivery and measurement when we don't have all the data that we are expecting or used to having, whether that data is missing or just partial. We can use modeling to help fill those gaps and give advertisers a more complete view of their ad performance with some of this aggregated data. And obviously the benefits of that are fairly clear. It's better to drive delivery of more effective ads to people who are likely to convert. And we can assess whether someone is likely to convert based on our ability to model that conversion data to understand who is going to be interested in this product. In the past, we may have not really been able to use that missing or partial data, which again would give us kind of an incomplete picture of what's happening. But with this investment in conversion modeling, we think we can fill in those gaps with our learnings and provide a better experience to businesses and to customers. And then I also want to highlight privacy enhancing technologies. Oops, sorry, I went too far. You probably have heard this term in the industry. It's definitely a very hot topic, I would say. But the way that we think about privacy enhancing technologies is they help make the most out of data while continuing to respect people's privacy. And we feel very strongly, and I think this position is well acknowledged and supported by our peers and competitors, that PETs will support the next generation of digital advertising. And so we, like I said, want to be and in front of that, we want to be thinking about it and preparing for it today. So we're investing in a multi-year effort with academics, with global organizations and industry bodies and developers to both build solutions like new products that rely on these privacy enhancing technologies and continue to collaborate on industry standards so that we as an industry can build this future together. Because obviously we know we can't do this alone. It has to be sort of an industry-wide effort. And so examples of these types of technologies that we're investing in are things like encryption, aggregation, using randomized data, removing identifiers, and keeping data within a device. And these foundational technologies and techniques, the goal is to apply them to the data we use across our products and solutions, helping to keep individual consumers' data personal and private, but continuing to see the same sort of great performance and measurement that advertisers expect out of our platform today. So this is very nascent stages, not really a ton of like substantive products in market yet, but it's an area that we are heavily investing in because, again, we feel quite strongly that this is sort of the future and this is where the whole industry is moving. Our goal, like I said, is really to work together as an industry so that we can all advance. Like if we come up with a standard that's specific to Meta, that's not very helpful. So we are working very closely with industry bodies like the World Wide Web Consortium and the IAB Tech Lab. We've published a joint proposal with Mozilla on what we call interoperable private attribution, which is a vision for how the internet could sort of work going forward. And we're collaborating closely with Meta business partners like Telium and others to think about how do we evolve our products and our offerings in a way that is sort of in line with this idea of privacy enhancing technologies. From a technical standpoint, we're open sourcing technology solutions like our private computation, starting to, like I said, we don't have a ton of products, but we're starting to test a couple of products. In particular, the one called out here is Private Lift with advertisers to sort of make sure that the things we're building are actually solving the problems that we want them to solve, and they're leading to the same kind of performance results that advertisers expect out of Meta. And I'll just close by reiterating this statement from Mark Zuckerberg on our earnings call about 3 months ago, which is we're making major AI investments to build the most advanced models and infrastructure in the industry. And over the next year or two, we hope that this drives better recommendations for people and higher returns for advertisers. Just to kind of underline this idea that we are investing very heavily in this area, and the whole end goal of these investments is to enable performance on people's terms, to enable businesses to continue to see really strong performance out of Meta advertising, but also to respect the privacy demands and needs that our customers are having. So I think that's where I want to end, and just add that partners will be an incredibly important part of this vision. And partners like Telium have gotten us really very far in terms of conversions API adoption, and we'll certainly continue to look to them to help our customers onboard to our current solutions. And then going forward, we'll work very closely together on tons of new solutions that are yet to come in the next few years.
Awesome. Emily, thank you for sharing that. It's super exciting to hear that Meta is thinking about this in many different angles, of course, but the emphasis on privacy being super important, but also just a heavy emphasis on personalization. As you said earlier in your presentation, it's okay to try to do two things at the same time, right? To be able to serve the right information to the right people while respecting the boundaries that they give us and you and the rest of the data ecosystem. So thanks so much for sharing that. Want to get to a couple questions for you as we wrap up. We have about 8 minutes here, so I think we have time for a couple, but we'll stay cognizant of the time. But question from the audience is, reducing cost per action seems to be one of the primary value drivers for using the Pixel and Conversions API together. Can you talk about how using these redundancies improves return on ad spend for folks?
Yeah, of course. So we kind of highlighted some of this in the slides, but essentially when you use just the Pixel today, there's two sort of potential issues or suboptimal experiences. One is that consumers often have ad blockers. They may have connectivity issues that prevent the Pixel from loading. And so you're going to leach some non-zero amount of data from the Pixel if you're just using that. For every, I don't know what the numbers are, but let's say for every 100 customers that come to your site, a handful of their pixels are not going to load, and you're going to lose out on that visibility. The second limitation is that the Pixel can only track what happens in the web browser. So if you are a business, like I mentioned, that yeah, it's great, you want to drive people to your website, but the action you really care about happens off-site. If it's further down the funnel that can't be tracked by a Pixel, that's another limitation where the Pixel might not be able to capture like the actual business outcome you care about. So when you use them redundantly, which is our recommendation, as long as the Pixel continues to function, we recommend advertisers continue to use it, but supplement the Pixel with data from Conversions API. So data from Conversions API is not subject to browser technology changes, to ad blockers, et cetera. It's coming directly from your server into into Meta. So you're not losing out on that data. You have a more full and complete picture of what's happening on the website. So you can increase attribution that way. You can ensure that the results you're seeing on Meta are actually reflective of what's happening on your website, or wherever your end outcome is. And then the second piece, like I mentioned, is if you care about an event that cannot be tracked by the pixel, you can send that data through Conversions API and start to optimize for that outcome that you really care about instead of the outcome that is tracked by the pixel. And so we see businesses who are able to do that see much stronger performance because they're actually optimizing for the outcome they care about. And it helps our systems learn, okay, maybe this type of user is clicking on the ad and filling out the lead, but they're actually not converting. And so we need to serve the ads to this other type of user who is doing all that, but then also converting on the lead, which we would not have had visibility into with the pixel alone.
Yeah. Well, you're really speaking our language there. You're preaching to the choir when it comes from client side, server side, data attribution, being that data layer. So being that you're thinking of it that way is tremendously reassuring and kind of a vote of confidence that, in the data ecosystem that we're going to market together in the right way. Yep. So no, thanks for commenting on that. I'll leave you with one more, Emily, before we're going to go to a break after this. But in your position, you have the ability to see across how companies are doing this, right? You can kind of see some best practices. So what would be your recommended action for marketing and data teams that want to get more out of the Pixel and Conversion API, the data they share? What are some first things that you always ask your clients, like, hey, are you doing this? Are you doing these basic blocking and tackling type moves to make sure they pull out of their investment?
Yeah. So I'm going to sound like a broken record. The first one is, are you integrated with Conversions API? Are you sending your data via server? For all the reasons that we just talked about, if you're relying just on the pixel, you're potentially missing out on conversions and teaching our machine learning and our models that this is the thing you actually care about so we can better optimize. So that's number one. If you are integrated with Conversions API already, and set up redundantly with the pixel, the other things that we recommend are really thinking about your event match quality score. So event match quality is a score that we use and is shared with advertisers who have implemented Conversions API that is a reflection of how likely we are able to match an event that you're sending via Conversions API to a user on on Meta. I'm not used to that yet. So when you send an event via Conversions API, let's say you send a purchase event, this purchase happened on my website, you're also going to send a bunch of consumer information parameters or customer information parameters with that event. Let's say email address, IP address, phone number. The more of those that you send, the more likely we are able to say, okay, the user who completed this action, this purchase on your website is user Emily on Meta. And then we can actually use that data to target, optimize, measure, et cetera. And so that event match quality score is an indicator of how likely you are to be able to do that. Telium, as a partner of ours, has implemented the event match quality API, so they can actually share that within their own interface. But we encourage customers to look into that, make sure that their event match quality score is at least a 6 or higher, because that, again, increases the likelihood that we're able to match. If you're not sending, for example, if you're sending email, but you're not sending IP address or phone number, it's harder for us to match. If you're sending like zip code only and you're not sending any PII, we're not going to be able to tell who that user is. So we encourage people to look at, that would be sort of the second thing and major thing I would say is look at your EMQ score and make sure you're sending all the right events and customer information parameters to enable that Conversions API integration to actually deliver value for you.
Yeah. No, perfect. And you actually perfectly segued into something I was hoping you could comment on. Speaking of EMQ events, would you mind letting the audience know about something that's coming up?
Sure. Yeah. So kind of subtly did that on purpose as well. Wanted to highlight that my colleague, Ruxanda Ware, will be participating in a Telium-led webinar, I believe on August 25th, about event match quality score, how to increase your event match quality score, how to sort of track it and understand what the metric is, and then how to improve it. So would encourage you, if you're a Telium customer or prospective customer who's already integrated or considering integrating, would definitely recommend joining that webinar because it isn't enough just to integrate. You want to make sure the integration is actually driving value for you. And if your event match quality score is low, it won't be driving the same value as if it was high.
Oh, perfect. No, Emily, that's super exciting. And so for those curious, our team has linked a link inside the chat so you can register for that event at the end of August. super excited to have Meta's participation in that Telium Lab webinar, as Emily said. Emily, thanks so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And thanks as always for the partnership.